Why Renee Nicole Good is being treated like a black woman. An American story about power, policing, and whose life is granted grace. By any neutral reading of the facts, Renee Nicole Good should not be a national controversy. She should be a grieving family's private loss, a tragic encounter under investigation, a sober moment for public accountability. Instead, her name has become a battleground, flattened by official language, stripped of empathy, and filtered through a familiar script Americans have seen for generations. That script has a history, and it has a color, a familiar pattern in American policing. In the United States, the way victims of police or federal law enforcement violence are described often matters as much as what happened to them. Long before court findings or forensic reports, narratives harden. Labels appear early: non-compliant, aggressive, threatening, used a vehicle as a weapon. These phrases are not neutral. They are legal armor, deployed quickly, consistently, and disproportionately. For decades, Black Americans have borne the weight of this framing. From the killing of Amadou Diallo in 1999, to Sean Bell in 2006, to Michael Brown in Ferguson in 2014, and George Floyd in Minneapolis in 2020, a pattern has emerged. Immediate justification, delayed accountability, and relentless character scrutiny of the dead. The victim becomes the suspect. The officer becomes the narrator. Renee Nicole Good, though not black, is now being placed inside that same machinery. Language that signals guilt. In official statements and early media coverage, Good has been described using language that signals criminality rather than humanity. She is framed as an obstacle, an impediment, a disruption, not as a person navigating a chaotic encounter with armed federal agents. This is not accidental. Criminologists and media scholars have long documented how law enforcement narratives rely on behavioral framing to legitimize force. When authorities say someone failed to comply or ignored commands, the implication is that lethal outcomes are self-inflicted. The burden of survival is placed entirely on the civilian, regardless of confusion, fear, mental distress, or rapidly changing conditions. This framework has historically been applied most aggressively to black victims. What is striking in this case is how seamlessly it has been extended to Renee Nicole Good. TACH. Proximity to power determines sympathy. American policing has never operated solely on the basis of law. It operates on proximity to power. Race is one factor, but so are class, political utility, and narrative convenience. When victims fit comfortably into respected categories, veterans, professionals, children, institutions move slowly and speak cautiously. When victims are framed as disruptive or inconvenient, the tone hardens immediately. Good's treatment suggests she has been categorized not as someone deserving benefit of the doubt, but as someone whose death must be explained away. That is the experience black families have described for generations. Minneapolis and the weight of history. The location matters. Minneapolis is not a neutral backdrop. It is the city where George Floyd's murder forced a national reckoning with police violence. It is a place where official narratives have repeatedly collapsed under video evidence, eyewitness accounts, and later investigations. In that context, the speed with which authorities moved to define Renee Nicole Good before the public had answers carries extra weight. It signals institutional reflex, not reflection. One of the uncomfortable truths of this moment is that racial privilege is not absolute. It is conditional. When a person is perceived as disorderly, obstructive, or politically inconvenient, the protections often associated with whiteness can erode quickly. This is where Good's case intersects with black experience, not in identity, but in treatment. She is being spoken about, not spoken to. Defined, not understood. Reduced to a set of behaviors rather than recognized as a life. That is what it means in America to be treated like a black woman. The larger question. The question raised by Renee Nicole Good's death is not only what happened in that moment, but why the story unfolded the way it did afterward. Why was empathy absent from the first official words? Why was justification faster than investigation? Why did authorities speak with certainty while the public was left with fragments? These are not new questions. Black Americans have been asking them for generations. What is new is who is now being forced to confront the answers. Why Renee Nicole Good is being treated like a black woman. An American story about power, policing, and whose life is granted grace.